Hi everyone, good evening. Welcome to the session. We have a very low head count, guys. Please let your peers know that we are starting in. It's already 7:57. Invite them and let's start this session on a good note. Hey Hariharan, welcome. Hi. I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I think you can call me Vaidi, by the way.
Vaidi. Cool. So hi Vaidi, welcome. We'll be starting sharply at 8, right? Let's just
Sure.
wait for our peers to join and then we'll start.
Sure.
Yeah, cool. Good evening, guys. Good evening. Welcome. Hi, everyone. Hi, Kapil. Thanks for joining in today. So, okay, let's start the session. Hi, everyone, and good evening, and welcome to the fourth and last episode of our Product Week 2024. We're really excited when we started this vision, and finally, the whole activities, the whole operations is coming to a summation now with that final episode today, right? And for this final episode, we have a really special guest with us today. He's none other than Vaidi, right? So Vaidi has more than 17 years of experience in the industry now. He specializes in agile product development, and he has major experience in IT and also into banking as well. So Vaidi has led many teams, and he also has major exposure working in various geographical areas like UK and USA and India, right? And with his experience in product development, he has joined with us today to share his experience in this field, right? So Vaidi, the floor is all yours to share your learning, to share your feedback with us. And please let us know about you, and also let us know what we have in store for us, for all our peers, right? So yeah, welcome.
Great.
It's
Okay.
visible. Yeah.
So, hola. Okay. For
Hola.
those of you who are wondering if you're in the wrong Zoom session, no, you're not. You're in the right one. I'm not sure if anyone of you here knows Spanish.
Yeah, I think some of us might have a bit idea because people have heard some of the stuff, right? There's some.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. So, this basically is the Spanish translation for my learning is your learning. So, given the context of this particular week, the session that Accredian has been running. So yeah, great. Oh, so we do have a Spanish language professional. Great. Anyway, so let's pick on. So quick introduction about myself. I think Saket did a very warm, very nice welcome. So thank you for that introduction. So quick brief. Been blessed that I have been able to work across 3 different countries or 3 different continents, if I were to use that. Been with the industry for over 17 years now. Certified in product. Not sure whether certification really helps a lot nowadays, but yeah, always good to have those initials after training. Did my MBA. Also have graduated did my engineering from Chennai on the computer science field. So do have a bit of technology exposure. But I think what is most important is that you guys can feel free that, I do not know Spanish at all. So the entire session will be in English, not to worry. So let's move on. A quick question for all of you. What is the most admired company or the company that you admire the most when it comes to product? Quickly, next 15 seconds. Okay. You got Apple, you got Microsoft, you got ADP, Zomato, Microsoft, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Walmart, Apple, Nvidia, Google. Okay, very nice. So all the usual, SpaceX, that was nice. Okay, so all the usual suspects are here. So great, thank you very much. So what can we expect in today's session? What we are basically going to be doing today is we are not going to be talking about any of the companies that we just talked about. I mean, all the companies that you guys mentioned, we are not going to be talking about any of them. What we are going to be talking about is, a fairly mid-sized to a large size B2B organization, which is very, very different in the way they work, the way they do things. So that is what we are going to be looking at today. So which basically means what you're going to look at today is going to be terribly not glamorous, in the sense that, it is not something that you go and say, hey, I did this, I did that, I am from Zepto, I'm from this, I heard this session. No, it's going to be completely non-glamorous. But so what is this non-glamorous field that we are talking about? It basically is what I'm calling as the B2B world, not the fast-paced, thing that you see on the news all the time. Zepto did this, or Zomato did this, or maybe an Apple probably would qualify. But most of or we saw a few things like Netflix and all that, right? So all those B2C companies which do a lot of stuff, that is not what we're going to be seeing today. Okay. So we will take another quick poll. So whoever is, arranging for the polls, if you can just quickly run this poll on Zoom for all of us. Yep. Okay. Okay. Very good. So quick check. If you were to look at it, this is what you will see, right? As in majority of you, I'm assuming that, firm does both. If I were to include that also in B2B, you will see that only 16% of you guys actually work in a B2C firm. The reality is that, bulk of the money in the world economy is in the B2B space. It is not in B2C. Okay. And this is not just, the small poll that we just add that is going to, reflect this. Let's look at a few more data points on this. So, for example, this is what I had done earlier today, wherein I did a quick Google search. If you were to look at the market size, all our product guys are, we generally are very big on data, right? So let's look at some data. So B2B, you see that, the global e-commerce market was valued at 24 trillion, which is actually 5 times the size of the B2C market. Generally, B2B is far, far bigger. So let us look at not just the e-commerce market, let's look at something else. Another one that I can show is, this graph, which is about, our payments market. MobiKwik just closed their IPO. So I thought this would be relevant here. So if you were to look at it, there are tons of, the amount of money that you see in the B2B space is way, way, way more than what you will see in the B2C space. So why am I talking about all this? I started off by saying that it is all non-glamorous, and then I'm talking of this. The reason being, bulk of us are going to be employed and are already employed in the B2B space. It's fairly big, a bit slow, a lot of things, but end of the day, it is about us getting our every month salaries. Salary checks get deposited, you make enough money, or as I call it, it's about my money. Okay. So I see somebody has raised their hand. So is there a question? Okay. Venkatesh Mata. Oh, okay. That's fine. Okay. Okay. Then let's quickly move on. So what is this big thing about B2B? So one of the things that you will find is, especially when companies start growing, mid-size, large size, one of the things that you will see is the pace at which decisions get taken, the pace at which things move. That generally becomes slower. And why is it that it is slower? Let's look at that. We will first start with a bit of history. If you look at how organizations were, and this is not just, for now, not just, in the IT space, but in all the industries in general. If you were to look at it, first, you had a small network-based company, which is similar to what we have as in startups today. So you had your customers, they were very, very focused. So you had this network of people. So when the customer needed something, they always knew, the people knew each other. They always had, this tendency wherein everybody will double up and do like 2 roles or 3 roles. So they used to just, call up people, get things done. So that was the way, the network effect, as we call it, that was how organizations were built, and that's how it all started. As they started growing, they realized that, oh my God, I, as an individual, will not be able to do multiple things. I definitely need help. I cannot concentrate on everything myself. So that is when you started having this era of what we call a specialization. So suddenly you had these departments that were created. So the specialization of finance, specialization of marketing, specialization of human resources. So you started creating these departments, and you also started creating hierarchies. So that is how the entire industry evolved. And when I say industry, it is not just about, the IT industry. In general, all the industries, they have gone through this moment when you started having these hierarchies, and then you started getting what we call as economies of scale. So there are a lot of other benefits, like in terms of, efficiencies and stability. Stability specifically because, it no longer depended on one person to get the job done. So in case, one person was not there, you had somebody else in that department who can pitch in and get the job done. So there were a lot of benefits that happened. Now, why am I mentioning all this? We are talking about product wiki, right? So if you were to extend that into the product management arena, right? So that in specific, if you were to look at it, again, if you were to look at the initial definition or the role that was created was what we called as a product owner. Way back in the early 2000s, between 2000 and 2005, when the Scrum framework was first created, that is when this role of a product owner was defined. And even today, if you were to look at the Scrum framework, they only have one role. There is only a product owner. And the expectation was that this particular person, this particular role will actually manage all the activities, whether it was vision, whether it was lifecycle management, your UX product backlog management, your release, your road mapping, coming up with your business model, the financials with respect to pricing, doing your market research, customer contact, everything was supposed to be done by this person. It was expected as one singular role called a product owner. And that particular person also had to bring in, the knowledge of the entire market. They also had to understand what are the new technologies that could be done, process, sales support, etc. So basically, it was one person expected to do everything. That is how the role was created, and this is way back. Now, even if you look at the title of our this week that we have the sessions on Accredian, we are calling it product manager, right? So not only are we looking at, we already have a hierarchy that we have built in today's world. There is a product owner and there is a product manager. That in the initial days did not even exist. But in slightly bigger firms, you typically will find that, even that has now become multiple, for lack of a better word, departments, multiple stakeholders, all of whom who are going to be closely working with in order to achieve the same things. Like, for example, UX, which used to be one of the experience things that had to be done by the product, now you actually have UX departments. So you will have a UI designer. Sometimes you have got UX specialists who look at this, and there sometimes there are hierarchy there. When it comes to marketing, you've got actual product marketing. So there is a product owner and a product manager, and there is a product marketing. So they look at communicating to the market, looking at making sure that the new features that you are developing, how is it that you will be communicating to that. Now, if you were to compare it with a B2C, if I were to take the example of, say, Zomato, you actually see that Dipender, who's basically their CEO, he probably works as their marketing guy as well, right? He keeps tweeting, hey, now I have now added this new feature called the dark mode on Zomato, right? Now, there's one guy who's basically doing everything there in the B2C, but in a B2B, you generally will not see that, especially if it is slightly, the focus that we have on specialization here is different. When it comes to, business modeling and then figuring out what is going to be the pricing that you're going to be charging for customers, you don't get to take the decision yourself. You will have to work with product finance. And then, last but not the least, when it comes to process and, release, there is this, what I generally call, for all those fans of Avengers and the Marvel Universe, the Thanos. The Thanos of this is what we call as GRC. Does anyone know what GRC stands for? Any guesses? You can put that on the chat. Yes. global risk and compliance. Risk and compliance is R. G actually stands for governance. So governance, risk and compliance is basically what they say. And yes, as Abhishek has brought out, yes, there are roles like product manager, all that in safe. You're right. But that is basically, so that is where, the scaling happens. That is the reason why even in safe, you've got these different roles. So the idea is, as organizations grow, what we typically call and what you typically are probably used to in the traditional world of product management, where you're expecting things and you're expecting that one guy will take care of everything, that usually doesn't happen. So specialization has got its impact. What do you think could be the impact when you got this kind of a specialization? Remember, the benefit that you have is you are no longer dependent on that one person to get the job done. You have got this army of people who can all help in getting things done. So what potentially could be the side effect of that? Any guesses? Okay. So the usual side effect of that is, okay, there are no dependencies, which is fine. Okay. The question was, Vishek, was that, when you got this kind of specialization and then you got a lot of people, the roles actually have been redefined, not the traditional Scrum definition of a product. What are the, you get more collaboration. Okay. Okay, very nice. I like that, Vinay. You get a lot more job opportunities. Very good. Okay. So one of the not so great effects is this. Things don't happen quickly. It's like, it'll come today, tomorrow, hopefully day after, not no any longer than that. So one of the common things that you will see is that, things go slow. So earlier when one guy was there, things used to happen much faster. But then now you've got a lot more people, which sounds counterintuitive, right? In the sense that if you've got more people, things should happen faster. But generally what happens is the reverse, that things actually start getting slower. So why do we think? So why do you think that things become slower? Yes, Kapil has mentioned that, it becomes slower, but why? Yes, too many ideas. So therefore you got too many things. You need a lot more approvals. Okay. Different people, so different opinions. Yes, a lot of mismanagement. Okay. Yes, too many people. Yes, so dependency. So you got to come up with your RACI matrices. Okay. I think we all sort of understand. So if I were to put it in one word or one way of saying why, to me, it's just that we are just human beings. It's just in our nature. Okay. When you've got multiple people, all of them who have got to work together, yes, we have the same vision. We have the same strategy. All that is fine. But the reality is we are human beings, right? So if I have to take off, it depends on my son's schooling. Only when he gets off is the time when I can take off. It doesn't matter when my release is scheduled in office. For me, that is my different priority. I don't decide when my school vacation happens. So therefore, I would rather delay the release rather than delay my vacation with my son. This is just one example, probably a bit corny. But the idea here is, you are dealing with human beings, right? So there are different perspectives. And I'm not sure, but one of the things that usually happens when you got a lot of people is that, yes, Shiva, as he mentioned, that, too many leaders means you got too many ideas, and more importantly, you got too much of egos. Too many people, a lot of them, too many egos. How do you manage all that? So which in turn comes to the focus of today's discussion, which is what we call as stakeholder management. Now, I'm not sure how many of you were able to attend the sessions that were done previously, the three of them. I thought they were very nicely done. And in case any of you did not have the opportunity or were not able to attend that, I would strongly suggest that you go and check out their YouTube recordings. Very well done by all the three of them. But I would like to, quote a couple of things that were mentioned by the first speaker. I'm sorry, I forgot his name. I'm not sure if it is Sunil or Sushil. What he mentioned was, incidentally, this was when it came during the Q&A. So I think one of them had asked, okay, how do I become a product manager? I want to get into this space. I'm more a techie guy. How do I get into this space? And then there was another question about, where he was talking about, how do I evangelize and promote these kind of things that I'm doing? So when the questions were around that, he made a very nice point about stakeholder management. He mentioned that in passing. Yes, he had done a lot of it, where he had talked about product market fit. He had talked about business vision, strategy, and all that, which was also another theme that we saw in the other two engagements as well, other two sessions as well. I'm not saying that they are not important. They are absolutely important, no doubt about that. However, I personally feel that if you are looking at a context like a B2B, it's not that product market fit doesn't make the difference. Of course, it makes a difference, or else you're not going to get the money, no doubt about it. But then stakeholder management is something that is as important or slightly more important, at least in my opinion, which probably doesn't get as much importance as it probably should get. So that is the reason why I thought I will mention this, because it sort of happened that they mentioned it in passing as part of their Q&A, but they do understand. When you practice it, you probably understand it a lot more, and you think that it's expected. But then for people who are probably getting new into the industry, I thought this is something that you need to be a bit more conversant about, and that was the reason why I thought let's look at this topic for today. So we will start with a simple question. Who are your stakeholders? So put that in. So who are your stakeholders? Who are all the stakeholders that you think, if you are going to be a product manager, who are the internal team, business partners, external, internal stakeholders, sales, engineering, production. Okay. Can we be a bit more specific? What is internal and external? Participants in product making. Okay. Who are those participants? The customers, very nice. Human resources, very good. The business teams, okay. Management, finance, founders, very good. Finance, marketing, engineering, great. So partner-facing teams, very nice. So whoever gets involved, whoever gets affected, right? Very nice. Investors, very nice. So of late, whenever you got any questions, what do? We go and ask ChatGPT. So I did the exact same thing, and I went and asked ChatGPT, okay, who are stakeholders. And this is that huge list that the ChatGPT gave as part of the question that I asked. So if you look at it, there are internal stakeholders, external stakeholders, there are primary stakeholders, there are secondary stakeholders, there are key stakeholders, and then there are multiple different categories. So who is a stakeholder? If you look at the top line, in my opinion, if I were to define it, I keep it very, very simple. I say that, it is an individual or anybody who has got an influence on your final outcome. He or she who has got an influence on your final outcome, he or she is a stakeholder. Okay. And one of the critical activities or the critical expectations from a product manager is about stakeholder management. Okay. So why? We generally tend to manage products, we manage features, we manage time, in terms of the product roadmap and all that. We engage with clients when we give a lot of care and attention. But do we also give the same care and attention to the stakeholders around us? That's the question, and that's the topic for today. So, whenever we do any session, you have to have one framework, or else it doesn't look good. So therefore, I will use the same technique. So this is what is generally recommended when it comes to stakeholder management, what is called as the Mendelow's matrix. So when you've got so many different stakeholders, right? We just saw the ChatGPT list. And even in ChatGPT list, it actually said examples and gave only 2 or 3. There are so many different stakeholders. And as organizations keep getting larger and larger, the number of stakeholders that you've got to manage as product guys, it becomes even more. So how do I ensure that I keep people happy? Or if I were to ask the question differently, do I really need to keep everybody happy? And what does happiness mean? How do I engage with them? So that is what this framework will help you, decide. So the two parameters that you need to be evaluating is the power or the influence that they have, and the second is how interested are they in your product itself. So you can look at it as a 4-step process. The first is you should identify who are your actual stakeholders. Put that entire list down. That list that we just had as a small exercise. Take that entire list, note them down. Next, rate each of them with respect to their authority, especially if they have got financial authority to make or break. If they have the authority to actually say, no, your project is disapproved, those are the guys that you need to be concentrating on. Put that on power. Next, look at the interest levels. And based on that, the general recommended stakeholder mapping is like this. People who have got very high power and who are very highly interested, work very closely with them. Ensure that you are working so closely that it looks like they are the ones who are driving the project. They are the ones who are driving the product forward and not you. You should give them that kind of a feel. Make them important. People, you will sometimes find that they don't really have authority, but they are very interested. So what you should be doing is you should be using them as consulting boards. That is, you keep informing them. You probably set up, separate one-on-ones. Whereas if you were to look at, the top right corner, you will probably actually invite them for meetings, and then, you will have collaborative discussions with them, take their inputs, and, actually sort of ask them for approvals. But the people at the bottom right, what you do is you make them more on one-on-ones. You talk to them one-on-one, and then you say, okay, I'm going to consult. Yeah, what do you think? This is something that you're using them as idea boards. You're going to sound your ideas with them and take their inputs, but not necessarily ask them for approvals. The other guys that you see would be, the top left, which is they're not really interested, but then they have a lot of power. They can come in and say, I don't care, man. Project disapproved. Everything is done down the drain. If they don't approve your project, people like say finance, marketing. So it is very important that you keep them satisfied in the sense that, more often than not, they just want to know what is happening. They don't really worry about, how do you do that? What are the key intricacies? They don't really care. They just want to be in the know. So more often than not, a simple CC in emails is good enough. So keep them informed. And finally, there will be some people who neither have the power nor have the interest. So just keep monitoring. Some of them might end up becoming, stakeholders who might end up becoming a bit of a nuisance. So monitor. If required, you can get into, managing them. But as much as possible, you should reduce the effort that you're expending when it comes to managing these kinds of stakeholders. Okay, great. So this is just a simple framework that we use in order to figure out who do you need to manage and how much of effort should you be spending on that. Now, this particular session or this particular series is all about, product failures, right? We have done that. How do we learn from our failures? So this is an example of where I personally feel that I could have done a better job at, managing the stakeholders. So this really happened. One of the things that we had done was we have this great SaaS product. We wanted to add a lot more features, but we were, technologically constrained because of the fact that it was an on-premise product. So we had to move to the cloud. So we had to do a lot of updates. We finally were ready. We got the updates done. We were ready to move to the cloud. And, we were literally looking to press the button, go live. That is when we get an email. This email came from a department called Contracts Management. They said, according to the contracts, now the nature of our business is that we have got multiple B2B customers. Okay, so that is the reason why legalese becomes a very, very important aspect. Different sets of customers. But then each of these will be, you will still have your big customers and small customers, no doubt. But then there was this one small clause that one small customer had put in. He said, unless and otherwise they had approved, you cannot move data out of their data set. This was one small nuance that was put in as a clause. Now, it is not that, we did not actually, when we started this project, when we started this entire initiative, it was not like we did not ask them. It was not like we did not, send or request them, okay, is there anything that we are missing? We did do that. We did send that email to the legal team. But that is where, the point about stakeholder management comes in. It was not that we did not want to involve them. So we did ask them, okay, guys, is there anything that we need to be concerned about? Because, we know that legal terms can come and bite us in the back. So we did send an email. Now, it was a very interesting thing that I learned, and I learned only after, this entire episode happened, was our organization structure. So we have this legal team, okay, and we also have this contracts management team. This contracts management team is not part of the legal department. It actually sits within what we call as the operations department. Okay. Now, because we have got so many different customers, okay, so the legal team will not actually do the paperwork. They'll just do the review, and that was all that they were used to do. But the actual paperwork, getting everything done, the coordination, getting them signed, the follow-up, and all that was done by the contracts management team. The email that I sent was to the legal team, okay, and for our great luck, what ended up happening was the person in the legal team who actually was part of the initial negotiations of all these contracts, he got fired. And the person who actually was part of the contracts management team who was doing all this initially, he left the company. So what we ended up having was, I sent an email asking, okay, guys, is there an issue? Is there anything that I need to be concerned about? I did not get a response. So the thing that I did was I made an assumption that no news is good news. I don't know how many times you have heard this in your work. I personally feel no news is not good news. And that is something that I learned the hard way, right? Just because nobody answered the question, I assume that there is no contract, that no problem that I need to worry about. So therefore, we went ahead with it. But what we should have done is we should have gone ahead and actually asked. We should have kept on asking, guys, is my assumption right? Is there anything else that I need to consider? Is there somebody else that I need to talk to? Who can probably give me that? That was an assumption that we made. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because while in hindsight, it might look like, man, you have done your MBA. You've got 17 years of experience. Don't you even know this? This is common sense, right? But the reality is, it is those small things that we take for granted generally come to bite us in the back terribly. And this, I thought, is another example of, when we say stakeholder management, it is not just about managing your bosses, managing your CXOs and not just that. It could be something as simple as, making sure that you're actually getting the answer that you are looking for the question that you have, and not always about, getting the big things answered. Okay. So I just thought I will share this as a good case study so that all of us get a understanding. So the next time you hopefully, my learning becomes your learning as well. Okay. Then that is one side of this. Then the other part of stakeholder management is what I would like to call as the hippo effect. How many of you have heard this term called hippo? It's an acronym. Have you heard this term? If yes, put it in the chat. What does hippo? It is actually an acronym. If anyone knows the expansion, put it in the chat. It's a very commonly used term. Okay. HIPPO basically stands for the highest paid person's opinion. I repeat, highest paid person's opinion. That basically is a nice way of putting, like what Abhishek and Mani just mentioned. It basically is a nice way of saying the boss is always right. Or depending on your context, it could be the boss's boss or the boss's boss's boss. Okay. Now, this is another thing that product managers generally face. You basically have this amazing idea. This is killer idea. This is going to bring in the next $1 million. Everybody is happy. You got this. You go present it, and then, the cousin of the CEO comes in and says, I have got this great idea. Let's go and implement that. Okay. The boss's boss, or, the cousin of the CEO, right? So effectively, he becomes the boss's boss. So how do you manage that? So he has said something. You have your idea. Okay. You think that you can deliver or bring in the next $1 million based on your idea. And then there is this idea that is coming in from, let's just say, somebody important. Okay. So what do you think you will do? Any thoughts? How do you think you will respond? Negotiate both the ideas. Very good. I will take half of this, half of that. Okay. Remember, the boss's boss might not be happy saying that you are cutting out half of his idea. Yes. The usual answer is, let us give data-backed insights. Let us throw more and more charts at it and then prove that my idea is the best, right? That is usually the common approach. I'm not saying it is bad. Okay. That is the usual idea. But based on a bit of my experience and what I have heard and seen, this is typically what ends up happening. You will throw usability tests, you will throw surveys, you will have expert reviews, you will have all that. The hippo will still get its way. Okay. So, very nice, right? So, how do you do this? One of the suggestions that I always use is this. Start broadcasting on the W2FM channel. Does anyone know what the W2FM channel is? I'm sure all of us have heard this. Do you know what is the W2FM? The FM station? I'm assuming me is no in Spanish. Okay. Okay. It's a very common acronym again. Again, product managers generally show off by throwing jargons and acronyms. So, I would like to do the same. So, nice. I like, just like what Mani was mentioned on the chat. Yes. What's in it for me? That is the only FM station that anybody and everybody in the world will listen to. What's in it for me? I repeat, what's in it for me? So, while yes, you can throw your data points, okay, saying that your idea is better, your idea is going to give you the next $1 million. As the guy who is on the other side is not going to listen to that. He is only thinking that this guy is shooting down my idea. He is not listening to yours. Yours might actually be better, no doubt about it, but he's not going to listen to it. He is going to do everything in his power or her power to ensure that your idea gets shot down. Right? So, what do you do? So, the first thing that we do, how do you manage that, is by building relationships. Now, that is where another critical component of your stakeholder management. You don't go and create a relationship when you got this great proposal, when you got this great idea. No, you build relations day in and day out. That is something that is extremely, extremely important. And how do you do that? The first thing that you're going to do, remember, it's all W2FM, right? So understand what their goals are. What is their agenda? What is it that is going to motivate them? Sometimes it will be obvious, sometimes it will be hidden. So at that point of time, take your best guess. Understand what their pain points are, and then see how you can help them pitch your ideas in such a way that it will help achieve their objectives. The more and more you start doing that, the faster you will find that you will be in a position to actually get your ideas through. The more you make it presentable as, them presenting that idea, it becomes theirs. That is where you will be able to succeed. And one of the most important things that you also have to keep in mind is focus on ways to ensure that it is not a transactional one, that it is a very genuine relationship that you are building on trust. It should not be a case wherein, I will scratch your bike only when you scratch mine. Do not get into a transactional mode like that. That is definitely not recommended. So please ensure that you do this. That would be something that you've got to keep doing in day in and day out. This is one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is what one of you had mentioned on chat, which was about prioritization frameworks. Now, there are lots of prioritization frameworks. I have put in the most commonly used ones. The prioritization frameworks will give you one benefit. The benefit of the prioritization framework is you basically have the benefit of what we call as management by committee rather than management by individuals. So suddenly you will have this working group, a core committee, steering committee. There will be different terms that will be used, but at the end of the day, it is a group of people who are collectively going to take a decision and not a single individual. So this is another way by which you can manage the hippo, because it is no longer going to be just that guy. So you are now going to say, hey, I've got a structured framework. Great, boss's boss, fantastic idea. I think it definitely deserves the attention it needs. So how do we say that it is going to deserve that? How do you give that attention? You will put it through the prioritization framework. There is going to be the set of criteria. This is a set of parameters on which we are going to evaluate that. And then we will take a decision. Now, you have to still be a bit careful about this, because remember, even though it is a management by committee, you are definitely still going to run the risk of, not being able to get the entire committee on board, because the committee might still feel that the boss is still right, the rest of the committee. So you have to make sure that you are not only building relationships with the boss's boss, also build relationships with everyone. Especially when it goes to, people who are beyond. One of the things that I always say is, I would rather spend more time building relationships with my engineering guys, with the architecture, with legal, with marketing, rather than with product, for the simple reason that, they are the guys who will finally help me when I need. Because typically when you look at, any kind of frameworks, and my personal favorite is the Mischief one, where there is a very nicely defined way, which we will talk about in a couple of minutes. So you actually get inputs from multiple perspectives, from multiple different stakeholders. So sometimes you will find that even though it is the product director or the product vice president who has come up with the idea, maybe you will get the support from an unknown guy or an unexpected support from architecture, from marketing, that you did not anticipate. And that might help you push your product through, push your idea through. Just a food for thought. Okay. And my personal favorite among these is Mischief, because Mischief basically talks about a slightly different concept on how do you approach prioritization. Prioritization, if you generally look at it, we generally tend to do this, right? I do this, I'll get this kind of a benefit. I do this, I'll get $1 million. I do this, I'll get $10 million. $10 million is bigger than $1 million, therefore I'll go ahead and do this. That is the general approach that we have, right? Now, if you look at traditional product management, what we always say is you don't know. Okay, you don't know anything about the customer. What you are doing is you are taking an educated guess on what the customer wants. You are hoping that the customer will actually use it, and hoping even more that they will actually pay for it. That is what it is. So all that says that you have seen before, about the product market fit. What do we say in product market fit? You keep doing the experiment. Based on that experiment, you will learn to figure out whether you got it right or not. So effectively, you are guessing. It is an educated guess, no doubt, but it's still guessing, right? So you're already guessing whether there is a fit or not. But now you're taking the guess even one more level higher, when you're saying that, I'll get so much of benefit, I'll make so much of money. So one of the things that we generally say, at least in the Wisdom one, is what we say is, do not look at it as what you will get if I do this. Rather, look at it as what you will not get, or what is it that you will lose? What is the cost that you will incur if you don't do it? I repeat, it is not about what will happen if you do something. Rather, look at it as what will happen if you don't do something. What is it that you will lose? What is the cost that you will incur? That is the concept of what is called as cost of delay. Now, that is a concept that it requires a separate session by itself. So I'm not going to get into that. I would request you guys to read it up. There's a lot of content available on the internet, so you can do that. And that is my favorite because that is a very nice structured framework. So if you've got a very structured prioritization framework, that will also potentially help you. Now, it does not mean that these two will always work. Depending on your organization, depending on the culture, depending on the relationships, you will have to figure certain things out. So figure out what works for you, do it your own way. Okay. Then let us take the second poll, since we were talking about, looking at that. So let us do the second poll, since we were talking of stakeholder communication, management, and all that. What is your preferred technique? How do you do that? Okay. Very good. Okay. Very nice. So, email, some of you calls, some of you in person, very few on chat. Looks like we are not very tech friendly. That's fine. Everybody has their own approach. There is no right or wrong way of doing it. Whichever you think works best, depending on your organization culture, you can choose. But this is generally my approach. On a lighter, escalate directly. Okay. Now, so to quickly summarize, when it comes to stakeholder management, this is the general expectation, right? Product managers, that everything is beautifully laid out. You have all the requirements coming in from all the different stakeholders. You know what exactly needs to be done. You know exactly what needs to be done. When do you need to do it? You know how everything ties together. Everything is perfect, right? This is the ideal world. Unfortunately, what you don't get is this. What you get is something like this. An actual day in the life is more like this, where everybody is calling you and saying, yeah, there is a fire. You got to put this out. You got to fire. You got to put this out. You got to get this done. You got to get this done. Hey, I got this. Get this done. So with that, we come to an end of today's session. Gracias. I'm open for any questions now. Hope you guys found this session to be useful.
Hey, Vaidi, am I audible? Sorry, the network is quite fishy. But by the way, guys, the Q&A session is open. You can ask all your questions. But first of all, let me start by saying this. The session was very interesting. Your take on things are very, very interesting. Your perspective is very interesting. And that is what I liked about you most, about this session most. By the way, guys, Vaidi is not doing quite well. Like his health is not very fine, but still he has given us his time and
That's
effort.
okay. That's okay. We can take questions. No worries.
Right. So guys, please go ahead and ask your questions. Please drop it in the Q&A section and let us start a healthy discussion. Meanwhile, Vaidi, you can tell us about your experience with Cognizant, where you have spent so much of your time, right? What were the learnings? How you went into product development from code tech background, right? How was the interest? How was the journey all about?
Okay. So when I started my career in Cognizant, I started in operations, or what they call as PMO. I got recruited from post my MBA, and I felt that was probably a blessing again, that I actually got to understand what business is. So that helped us. That made me realize that this is what works, this is what doesn't work, or especially from the customer's perspective. And post that, I had the good opportunity of becoming a business analyst with one of our projects. And I was also lucky that, as part of the same project, they sent me to the United States. So that is where I learned, firsthand, in the onshore offshore model that we have, you are always dependent on, the on-site coordinator per se, right? He or she, whatever he says is your form of communication. The very fact that I was able to be there in front of them made me understand things a lot better. There are challenges, because one of the things that I did feel was they truly look at us for help. They do have problems, real problems, that they want us to help resolve. And from that perspective, that definitely was a great learning for me. Then I had the good opportunity of moving to a product company. I mean, I had worked on different domains with different services. As part of the services company, I was there for around 13 years. And then I moved on to Fidelity, a product-based company, so that, I see the other side of the fence. All that while, in Cognizant, I was working for a product company as a customer, but now I was able to move to the other side of the fence and actually try this as part of, how product management happens here or doesn't happen. So
Right.
a lot of the experiences, and I saw a few of the guys actually talking about, SAFe and all that. So that is another Agile framework that we have here. So that was a great learning as well. So yeah, all in all, it was, I would say, a blessed journey. And yeah, whenever I get an opportunity like this, I do try to share. Yeah.
Definitely. A journey full of learning, right? By the way, folks, he also helps aspiring product managers to grow in their field. So I strongly recommend you guys following him up on LinkedIn, right? See where he's active, because when you search about him, you might find various blog posts as well. So yeah, do give him a follow. And so we have now around 6 questions in the Q&A. I'll take one by one and you can reply to those. Okay. So first of all, Gayatri says, take care, Vaidi. I'm presently with the release management experience. Please let me know what should be provided as transferable skills to move into product management.
Okay. I think there was a similar kind of a question with, I keep forgetting whether he's Sushil or Sunil.
Sunil, yeah.
Sunil.
Right.
So where I completely agree with this point, in the sense that, I would suggest that you try making a move within your own organization. The probability that you'll be able to succeed there is far higher than trying to apply outside. So with respect to what you can do, my suggestion, yes, you can take up a certification, your PSPO, CSPO, or, courses that you have in Accredian. The reason why I'm saying that is because it has sort of become a de facto. While in itself, it will not help you become, jump into the product side. But what is important, it has become like a necessity. It's like a prerequisite. If you don't have, they will automatically assume that you don't know anything. Even if you probably know way more than the certified guys, they will still not agree. So do that certification. And if not anything, it will at least understand, you'll be able to understand a few jargons. You'll be able to, propose yourself, or you'll be able to project yourself in the right fashion. In terms of transferable skills, it's very interesting, right? And I also see that from Nikhil, where he has talked about, how is this any different from project management and product management? It's a very nice observation. This is my take on it. Okay, I'm not saying people will agree, but this is just my take. As you saw in my slide, the traditional roles and responsibilities of a product manager or a product owner has actually changed. So you've got this so much of specialization, so it has already been split out. So it has become more about stakeholder management. And when it becomes a lot more about stakeholder management, it is more about project management today rather than product management. Yes, you have the benefit of, not having to go and ask for requirements, and your scope definition still is in your hands, unlike the traditional project managers, where the scope was given to them and they just had to manage the timeline and the budget. Here, you still have some amount of, some amount of authority and benefit on managing the scope side of it. But project management has become a lot more important. That is one side of it. And the second side of it, if you look at it, the rise of AI, if you look at it, has sort of taken over a lot of the activities as well. I mean, I wouldn't say taken over completely, but the significant, like I think one of the guys who was talking about yesterday, he was saying that, earlier I used to take 5 days to write a PRD. Today I take 5 hours. 5 days has become a 5-hour job because AI is doing it for him. Similarly, when it comes to market research, a lot of it is automated, right? So the traditional activities that you used to spend time on no longer is, I don't want to say not relevant. It has reduced significantly. So the focus more is on stakeholder management, the human aspect. So to a long drawn answer to Gayatri's question, if you are in a position to project that, as part of release management, I'm already, working with so many different stakeholders and I'm in a position to, get things done, I think that would be the starting point. But at the same time, remember, you also need good stakeholder relationships, as I was mentioning earlier, good relationships with people in product also who will be willing to give you that opportunity. So go beyond your existing departments. Don't just, build relationships vertically, look at it horizontally across multiple departments so that you get that opportunity from somebody where you can then go and prove yourself. And I'm sure you will come out successful.
Absolutely. Makes sense. Makes sense. I think this answers a similar kind of question that Abhishek has also asked. He was asking that how should I move from business analyst role to a PM role? So I think, Abhishek, you have your answer there. He has explained it really well. Now I'll take a question, which is, I think, very technical for me. Soumyendu asks, what are the negotiation tips when it comes to pursue a HIPPO? Even though you are prepared with the data and WIIFM frameworks. So that is what he asks.
I wish I can give you a simple, answer, a simple checklist. You go do 1, 2, 3, 4 like an algorithm, and then you'll get the answer. Unfortunately, we are dealing with people, right? So managing people is not as straightforward as managing, say, computers or data structures. So one of the things I say, it is about trying to project it for the HIPPO as to how the HIPPO will be getting the benefit and not you as you or your own product. So it should always be projected as, HIPPO. Let me, for example, say this. Okay. So usually when we say HIPPOs, you'll be people slightly higher in the organization, right? So say a director, a vice president, somebody of that level. So he or she, you typically will have some kind of a strategy, some kind of a topic that they would have given some speech sometime. Okay. Note them down and then say, hey, that day you were mentioning that, you want to be able to cut down on, you want to improve operational efficiency. You had mentioned that, right? So I believe that if we were to do my particular enhancement, this particular feature, I mean, I'm just taking the example of what I think was discussed yesterday or day before, wherein they were talking of operational efficiency improvements when you are looking at internal stakeholders. So if you were to do this feature, I believe that we can get an operational efficiency improvement. Do you think this is in line with your strategy? What do you feel? Do you think this is something that, something that you will put in your roadmap? So it is always about you as in the HIPPO and not about you as in the product manager who's trying to push his idea. So then it comes across as, his idea, obviously now he's bought in, because what you have done is you have made his life easy by saying that, hey, the outcome is there. The outcome is in line with your strategy. So more often than not, they'll be willing to at least listen to you. So that would be the first thing that I would do. So relationship building is never a simple exercise that you do in a very short span of time. It is something that you keep doing over an extended period of time, and that also means that you listen. And for that, yeah, you should invest that time and effort to make it a true relationship. So if you do that, more often than not, it will work. Again, I want to use more often than not all the time. You should be willing to, accept failure. just like how, in everything and anything in product is bound to fail. So you should have that in this and keep experimenting. Maybe you tried this. He said, no, this doesn't align with my strategy. So go with something else tomorrow. But that would be my suggestion.
Absolutely. I think we have one more question which aligns into stakeholder management as well. Raja Monti, he asked that is escalating more equals to a toxic relationship between the stakeholders, or it's more like an interpersonal skill, but I'm still putting forward this question because it's definitely a scenario, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So this is where you should also know which are the bridges that you can potentially burn. Okay. Nobody likes to be escalated. Okay. And that goes, remember, if you do something and you burn a bridge, we are expect that, that what goes around will come around.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So you should be willing to figure out which is the bridge that you want to burn. Escalate accordingly. The other thing that I try doing is, rather than me escalating, can I get somebody else to escalate for me? Can I get my hippo, or can I do, if I am a product manager, can I get my product director? Hey, I really need your help, sir. There is no other way. If we don't get this approval from the finance department, we cannot move forward. It's one small thing. They are harping on this 2% profitability. They are not letting us go. So is there anything that we can do? We have given some couple of suggestions, but they are insisting. So instead of me being the guy, a bad guy, can I make somebody else the bad guy?
Right.
And it is not just about the bad guy also, right? Sometimes what ends up happening is, they might actually have a nice one-on-one relationship. So the product director might have he might have a good relationship with the finance director. He just picks the call. Hey man, please, can you, just talk to that guy and get this done. And when that guy says, hey, push the file forward, as we call it in our, government, this one, get it done, things will move. So yes, there is nuance when you say escalation. Escalation need not only be, I sent an email to every Tom, Dick and Harry in CC saying that, hey, why did that job not get done? You can also be a bit more, how do I say, a bit more diplomatic in your approach. But if push comes to shove, you should know, and that also goes back to, our that stakeholder matrix that I told you, power versus interest. In that, identify that stakeholder list, figure out who is the guy whom you are ready to burn. Based on that, take a call.
Absolutely. Makes absolute sense. On this line only, power versus interest, a stakeholder matrix that you have showed. Madhurji asks, I remember Madhurji. Hi, Madhurji, by the way. Madhurji asks, how can we align? Give me 4 scenarios of 4 people which can be placed on the 4 quadrants, right? So he wants a small, simple example.
Okay. Okay. As a product manager, high power, high interest would be obviously the head of product. Whoever is product director, VP, depending on whatever is your organization hierarchy. Another person, because the one that I'm working on is more of a SaaS product. For me, marketing is extremely important. So the head of marketing, these are 2 guys who are very high power, very high interest. Okay. High power, low interest are head of finance. If not head of finance, at least, mid management in finance, who will be in a position to approve my budgeting proposals. Low power but high interest are usually my architects, engineering heads, whom I have to work with, because ultimately they are the guys who, but they don't really get to say, no, Vaidhi, you cannot choose feature 1, you cannot do feature 2. That is still my domain. But if I don't work with them, if I don't keep them happy, they are not going to get the job done. So ultimately, I will get burnt. Low power, low interest. Technically, yes, people like legal, people like this, but they, as I said, that is technical. I know I was a guy who actually told you a case study where I got burnt because of that. But if at all I have to put in a list, that is what I would do. So this is just an indicative list based on my experience, my organization structure. So I would request you to, figure it out based on how your organization works or doesn't work, and based on that, take a call.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think with that, we are at the very end of the session. By the way, I just want to answer Vinay's question. No, after this certification, you don't have to pursue any other certification. Now is the time to apply your knowledge, right? Very simple and straight. We are doing as much as we can to bring forward good folks in front of you to share their knowledge, like Vaidi today. And we'll be doing that moving forward. And we promise that we'll bring good folks to share their experience, right? So I think with that, we can call it a wrap, right?
Just one final thing.
Yeah.
I tried something slightly different. Experimentation is all about the basic thing for any product guy, right? So I tried a slightly different format wherein I had a lot of GIFs and this.
People liked it.
I wasn't sure how good or bad it was. So feel free to share your feedback. I think there is one feedback form or whatever. I'm hoping that it is anonymous. So feel free to share your perfect feedback, because that will help me as a presenter also improve my presentation skills. So that is the intention. So please do share that with Accredian so that they can probably forward that to me a bit later.
Very absolutely. We'll share it with you. Folks, I have seen in the chat, people are appreciating your use and your wittiness of using those GIFs. People liked it so much. And by the way, I missed one question by Venkatesh. He asked that, is there any links or leads where he can learn more about frameworks, prioritization frameworks, or some stakeholder frameworks, right? Maybe you can share some.
If you just do a Google for WSJF, or if you just do a Google for product prioritization framework, you will get lots of it. So I had shared that the 4 most popular ones are the ones that I had listed in my slide: Moscow, Rise, Kano, and WSJF. So if you were to do a Google, you should be able to get tons and tons of content. So don't worry about that.
Yeah, and Vaidi, do you think that forums like Quora and this other guy, I forgot, so is following those spaces, product management, /product management spaces, helps someone to learn from them or maybe explore?
You can. That definitely is a good resource. I prefer LinkedIn, to be honest.
LinkedIn,
the reason being, a lot of people nowadays are sharing more on LinkedIn, their own experiences, and it just makes, at least probably for me, maybe I'm just too lazy. Rather than going and searching, I just follow 1 or 2 guys, and as and when they keep posting, I get it simply on my feed. So that is just me. However, no doubt, Quora and I think that also a good point about experiences matter more than, or you learn more from that rather than just theoretical concepts. So good to know theoretical concepts. However, don't make that the bread and butter. Make it more of experiences. That is where you will learn more.
Absolutely. Thanks so much once again, Vaidi. By the way, take care of your health. And folks, thank you so much for joining us today. For queries related to the recordings and to the session, all will be answered. We all have uploaded all the recordings. So one of our guys will reach out to you and let you know where you can find the recordings, right? I don't think I have missed any other things in the session, right? If I have missed, I'm really sorry, guys. And looking forward to the next session, to the next year. And Merry Christmas to all, and enjoy your holidays. Vaidi, thanks so much again.
Wish you everyone a very Merry Christmas and a happy 2025.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Vaidi.
Thank
you.
Have
a great evening. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Guys, the link was shared. The feedback link was shared in the chat. TA, if you can just reshare.